Hello, my friend. On this channel, we learn a language through an interesting story. Listen carefully. Read the text on the screen and repeat new words. If you need help, use subtitles. Now let's begin. Do you know what rice is? Of course you do. You have seen it in a shop or eaten it at home. But rice is not just food. Rice changed the history of whole nations. 8,000 years ago, hunters lived in China. They did not know what a state was. They did not build cities. They simply looked for food every day. At that time, in southern China, near the Yangtze River, people noticed one plant. It was wild rice. At first, they ate it like ordinary grass. Then they began to grow it on purpose. Time passed. The Chinese understood one important thing. If you flood a field with water, rice grows much better. The harvest becomes several times bigger. This was a great discovery. But here a big problem began. How do you flood a field with water? You need canals. You need many people to work together. One person cannot do this alone. Imagine that you are a farmer. You want to grow rice. What do you need? Water. A lot of water. But water does not come by itself. You must build a canal. You must bring water to the field. One person cannot do this. You need 100 people. You need 1,000 people. Who will manage them? That is how the first power appeared. Someone had to say, "You dig here, you dig there, and you watch the water." That was the first boss. Water needs order. Order needs power. Power needs obedience. That is why states in Asia became strong and strict. Not because bad people lived there, but because rice needed water, and water needed people to work together. In China, rice is not just a grain. It is culture and history. Can you imagine such a thing? In China, instead of "How are you?" people say, "Did you eat rice today?" The Chinese believed that the first person who taught them to grow rice was almost a god. They called him the father of farming. Even the great Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the man who built the Great Wall of China, believed he was his descendant. Before the Mongols arrived in 1200, 140 million people lived in China. That was 40% of the entire world population at the time. This was only possible because of rice. Rice fed a huge number of people. But rice is also dangerous. A drought or a flood, and there is no harvest. The price of rice goes up. People go hungry. Uprisings begin. In the 19th century, farmers grew rice exactly the same way as 2,000 years before. Nothing changed. There was not enough harvest. This led to a big crisis and, in the end, to revolution. Japan is a rice country. Do you know that? Japanese people eat rice every day. But it was not always like this. At first, hunters and gatherers lived in Japan. They did not know farming. Then people came from Korea. They brought rice. And everything changed. For a whole 1,000 years, The entire Japanese economy was built around rice. Taxes were paid in rice. Samurai received their salary in rice. The salary was called koku, about 150 kilograms of rice per year. That is how much one person needs to survive. Wealth was also measured in rice. One rich clan received almost 1 million koku per year. That is 150,000 tons of rice. Do you know what Japanese candlesticks are? They are charts used on the stock exchange. They show how prices change. In 1710, a rice exchange opened in the city of Osaka. People bought and sold future harvests before the rice had even grown. Traders invented a special way to draw price charts. Today, the whole world uses this method on stock exchanges. It is called Japanese candlesticks. And it all started with rice in Osaka 300 years ago. But rice also brought trouble to the Japanese. Rich people ate white polished rice. It seemed beautiful and prestigious. But when rice is polished, it loses an important vitamin, vitamin B1. Without this vitamin, a person gets sick. The legs swell, the hands go numb, the heart stops. A doctor ran an experiment. He sent one group of sailors with regular food, white rice. He sent another group with different food, bread and meat. The result was terrible. Half of the first group got sick, and 25 people died. Only 14 people from the second group got sick. The conclusion is clear. Polished white rice is bad for your health. India is also a homeland of rice. Do you know where the word rice came from? From Sanskrit, a very ancient language of India. This word spread around the world and became the word rice in many languages. India gave the world the very name of this grain. In India, rice is part of tradition. When a baby is born, they feed it rice. This is a symbol of a long and healthy life. At weddings, people throw rice over the bride and groom. This is a custom. But there is also a very terrible page in India's history. In 1943, a famine happened in the east of the country. Between 2 and 3 million people died. Why did this happen? The Second World War was happening. Japanese troops occupied a neighboring country, Burma, from where India received rice. The supplies stopped. Bengal had a bad harvest. Rice prices went up. Poor people could not buy food. The British government did not help. Local officials asked London to send grain. London refused again and again. Moreover, the British were taking grain out of India. This was a death sentence for millions of people. Have you been to Thailand or heard about this country? Many tourists go there to rest. But Thailand is not only beaches. It is a country with a very interesting history. 66 million people live in Thailand. 16 million of them are rice farmers. That is 1/4 of the whole population. Here, rice is not just a product. Rice is politics. In 2011, a new prime minister came to power. He promised the farmers, "The government will buy rice at a price 2 times higher than the market price." It sounded good. The farmers were happy. But what actually happened? Thailand sells rice to other countries. If you buy expensively inside the country, You also have to sell expensively abroad. But other countries, India, Vietnam, sold more cheaply. Buyers went to them. Thailand's exports fell by 1/3. The government lost a huge amount of money. In the end, the army took power. But this did not solve the farmers' problem. They did not know how to grow anything else. They needed rice. And the military were forced to start buying grain from the farmers again. That is how rice controls a country. Even generals obey rice farmers. Now let's talk about the most interesting thing. Rice changes not only the economy and politics, rice changes how people think. Scientists ran an experiment. They showed Americans and Japanese people the same video of fish underwater. The Americans described the fish, what color they were, how they moved. The Japanese described the water, the plants, the bottom, everything around. The Japanese saw the whole picture. The Americans focused on separate parts. Why is there such a difference? Rice fields need people to work together. You cannot work alone. You need neighbors. You need help. So people who grew rice think about the group, not about themselves. Wheat can be grown alone. So people who grew wheat think more about themselves personally. Northern China grew wheat, and people there think like people in the West. Southern China grew rice, and people there think differently. One country, two ways of thinking. The reason is in the grain. Do you know what an economic miracle is? It is when a poor country becomes rich in just a few decades. In the 20th century, this happened in several Asian countries at once. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore. All these countries followed the same path. At first, people worked a lot and took little money. This is the rice legacy, the habit of working hard. Factories made simple goods, clothes, toys, fabric. They sold them abroad. With that money, they built roads, schools, and hospitals. Then they moved to more complex production, cars, steel, electronics. Then, computers and microchips. In Japan, big companies worked like a family. A worker was the son of the company. The boss was the father. This is the rice tradition. Always think about the group, not about yourself. Rice tried to reach Europe several times. The soldiers of Alexander the Great saw rice in India and brought it home. The Arabs brought rice to Spain and Italy. But rice did not take root in Europe. The climate is too cold. Also, people often got sick near rice fields. In Spain, people were even executed for growing rice. So rice never became a European grain. So, what did we learn? Rice is a small grain. But this grain changed the history of half of humanity. Rice created states. Water was needed. Water needed people to work together. And working together created power. Rice created culture. The Chinese worshipped rice. The Japanese measured wealth in rice. Indians welcomed newborn babies with rice. Rice created an economy. Japanese stock market tools came from rice markets. Asian economic growth grew from the rice work ethic. Rice created a way of thinking, to think about the group, not about yourself. To work together, not alone. Today, Asian economies are getting stronger and stronger. China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore. These countries are shaping the future of the world. And at the heart of their success is rice. Maybe the next time you eat rice, you will remember this. The small grain on your plate is thousands of years of history. Goodbye, my friend. Until we meet again, keep learning, and you will succeed.